Welcome to my expat stories. Ever spent 6 months building something with someone you've never met? Mikey did. 54-year-old HGV driver from Newcastle. Messages every day, video calls 3 times a week, learning about each other, building trust, building something real. Or so he thought. Then he finally flew to Bangkok to meet Kanya, the woman he'd been falling for through a screen for half a year. Hotel receptionist, professional, beautiful. And for 2 weeks, everything felt perfect. Until the first emergency, then the second, then the third. And Mikey learned that 6 months of messages doesn't mean you know someone at all. If you've ever built a relationship online and wondered if it was real, this one will hit home. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more stories that'll make you think twice. Here's Mikey. I'm Mikey. Michael officially, but no one calls me that except the DVLA. I'm 54 years old. Been driving HGVs for 32 years. Long haul mostly. Europe runs. Sometimes I'd be gone a week at a time. Good money. Hard work. But I liked it. The road, the freedom. Just me and the lorry. I was married to Linda for 26 years. Good marriage. Not perfect, but solid. We had 2 kids. Both grown now. Daughter Sarah's in London. Works in marketing. Son Daniel's in Leeds. Engineer. They've got their own lives. See them at Christmas. Maybe Easter if they're not busy. Linda died 5 years ago. February 2020. Heart attack. Massive one. I found her in the kitchen. She'd been making a cup of tea. Kettle was still warm when I got home. She was on the floor. Did CPR. Paramedics came. But she was already gone. Just like that. 26 years gone. I didn't cope well. First few months I was numb. Just went through the motions. Work, home, sleep, repeat. My kids came up for the funeral, stayed a few days, then went back to their lives. Can't blame them. They've got jobs, families. Can't drop everything for their old man. I kept working, kept driving. It helped. Being on the road meant I didn't have to sit in that house. Didn't have to see her stuff everywhere. Her mug, her chair, the kitchen where I found her. I'd take every run they offered. Extra shifts. Night runs, anything to stay busy. But eventually you've got to come home, and when you do, it's quiet. No one to talk to. No one asking how your day was. No one there, just you and the telly. And a microwave meal, for one. My mate Daz said I should try dating. Get back out there. I said I'm 54. Who's going to want a 54-year-old lorry driver? He said loads of women. You're not ancient. You've got your own house. Steady job. You're all right looking. For an old git. I laughed. Said I wouldn't know where to start. He said online. Everyone does it online now. Dating apps. He showed me his phone. Tinder, Bumble, all sorts. I said that's not for me. Swiping on people like you're shopping. Feels wrong. He said suit yourself. But you can't spend the rest of your life alone, man. I said watch me. But he was right. I was lonely. Properly lonely. The kind where you talk to yourself just to hear a voice. Where you leave the telly on all night because the silence is too loud, where you'd give anything for someone to ask how your day was. So one night, after a long run to Rotterdam and back, I'm sat at home with a beer. I googled dating sites, not the swipey ones, proper ones where you fill out a profile, talk to people. I found one called ThaiFriendly, for meeting Thai women. I'd never been to Thailand, never thought about it, but I clicked on it anyway. The site had thousands of women. All ages, all looking for foreign men. Some profiles were clearly working girls. Some were just looking for sponsors. But some looked normal, real. Women with jobs, families, lives. I made a profile, just the basics. Mikey, 54, Newcastle. HGV driver. Widowed. Looking to meet someone genuine. I uploaded a photo. Recent one. Me stood next to my lorry. Not exactly a modelling shot, but it was honest. I scrolled through profiles, sent a few messages, got a few replies. Most conversations fizzled out after a day or 2. Then I saw Kanya's profile. Her photo showed a Thai woman, maybe late 30s, smart outfit, blazer and white shirt, professional. She wasn't pouting at the camera, wasn't posing in a bikini, just a normal photo. Smiling. Nice smile. Her profile said she was 38, worked as a receptionist at a hotel in Bangkok, divorced. 1 daughter. Age 12, looking for a good man. Honest, no games. I sent her a message. Just simple. Hi, Kanya. I'm Mikey from Newcastle in England. Saw your profile. You seem like a genuine person. Would like to chat if you're interested. She replied the next day. Hello, Mikey. Thank you for your message. Yes, I would like to chat. Tell me about yourself. And that's how it started. Messages back and forth. At first, just basic stuff. What do you do for work? What's Newcastle like? What's Bangkok like? She told me about her job. Front desk at a 4-star hotel near Sukhumvit. She'd worked there 6 years. Good job. Decent pay. She liked it. Met interesting people from all over the world. She told me about her daughter. 12 years old. Smart kid. Good at school. Loved to read. Kanya was proud of her. You could tell. The way she talked about her. She lived with Kanya's mother during the week because Kanya worked long shifts. Weekends they'd spend together. Go to parks. Markets. Mother-daughter time. Her ex-husband left when Amed was 3. Ran off with a younger woman. Didn't pay child support. Didn't see his daughter. Kanya said it was hard at first. Being a single mum. Working full-time. But her mother helped. And they managed. They were doing okay now. I told her about Linda. About finding her. About the last 5 years. She said she was so sorry. That must have been terrible. Losing someone you love like that. I said it was. Still is. She said I understand. Losing someone is hard. Even if they leave by choice. It's still loss. We messaged every day. Sometimes just a few messages. Sometimes long conversations. After a few weeks, she gave me her Line ID. We switched to that. Easier than the dating site. We started video calling. Just short ones at first. 10 minutes here and there. Her English was good. Bit of an accent, but clear. Easy to understand. She'd show me her hotel. The lobby. The desk where she worked. Her uniform. It all looked proper. Legitimate. She wasn't making it up. This was her real life. Her real job. I'd show her my lorry. The cab, the roads. She'd laugh. Say it looked like a big truck. I'd say that's exactly what it is, pet. After 2 months we were talking every day. Video calls 3 times a week. I'd call her during my breaks. She'd call me during hers. We'd talk about everything. Work, family, life. What we wanted. What we were looking for. She said she wanted stability. A good man. Someone who'd treat her and her daughter well. Someone honest. No games. I said that's what I want too. Someone genuine. Someone to share life with. She'd ask about my runs, where I was going, what I was hauling. She seemed genuinely interested. Not just being polite, really interested. I'd never had that before. Linda used to just nod when I talked about work. Kanya actually asked questions. Wanted to know details. Made me feel like what I did mattered. 3 months in, she said, Mikey, I really like talking to you. You're different from other men on that site. You're honest. Kind. Real. I said I like talking to you too. You make me feel less alone. She said me too. You make my days better. 4 months in, I realised I was falling for her. Properly falling. I'd wake up and check my phone, see if she'd messaged. I'd think about her during my runs, wonder what she was doing. If she was thinking about me, I'd plan what to say on our next call. What to ask her. I wanted to know everything about her. 5 months in, she said, Mikey, when are you going to visit me? Come to Bangkok. Meet me properly. Not just through a screen. I said I've been thinking about that. She said so. Will you come? I said, I will. When should I come? She said, any time, I'm always here, waiting. I booked 2 weeks off work. First holiday I'd taken since Linda died. Booked a flight to Bangkok. February 2025. 1 year almost to the day since Linda passed. Felt significant somehow. Like I was finally moving forward. Finally letting myself live again. I told Kanya, she was buzzing. So excited. Said she couldn't wait to meet me. To show me Bangkok, to introduce me to Amed. To her mother. I said, I'm nervous. She said, why? I said, what if we don't get on in person? What if it's different? She said, it won't be different. We know each other. We've talked for 6 months. It'll be perfect. I told Daz. He said, about time, man. You've been talking to this lass for half a year. Go see if it's real. I said, what if it's not? He said, then you come home and try again. But you'll never know if you don't go. I said, You're right. I landed in Bangkok on a Wednesday afternoon. Hot. Properly hot. The kind that hits you like a wall when you step off the plane. I got through customs, got my bag, walked out into arrivals. She was there, holding a sign with my name. Mikey. Big letters. She saw me, smiled, waved. I walked over. She was shorter than I expected. maybe 5'2", but everything else was the same. Same smile, same kind eyes. She said, "Mikey, you're here." I said, I'm here." She hugged me. Not awkward. Just warm. She said, "I'm so happy. Come, let's go." We got a taxi to my hotel. I'd booked a place near her work. She'd recommended it. 3-star. Clean. Good location. She came up to my room, helped me check in, showed me around the area, where to get food, where the BTS was, where her hotel was. 10-minute walk. Easy. That first night we went for dinner. Little restaurant near my hotel. Thai food. She ordered for us. Pad Thai. Tom Yum. Spring rolls. We talked. Just like on video calls. But better. Because she was there, real. Sat across from me. Laughing, smiling. Touching my hand when she talked. It felt right. Natural. Like we'd known each other longer than 6 months. She said, "Mikey, I'm so glad you came." I said, "Me too." She said, "Tomorrow I have day off. I'll show you Bangkok. We can go everywhere, see everything." I said I'd like that. She said, "Then weekend you meet Ames and my mother." I said, "I'm nervous about that." She said, "Don't be. They'll love you. I already told them about you. My mother says any man who waits 6 months to meet me must be serious. Must be good man." The first week was brilliant. She showed me Bangkok. Temples, markets, the Grand Palace. Chatuchak. We'd walk hand in hand. She'd explain everything. The culture, the history, the food. She was a proper tour guide. Knew everything. Made me feel welcome. Made me feel like I belonged there. We spent every evening together. She'd finish work at 6, come to my hotel. We'd get dinner, walk around, talk. Then she'd go home. Back to her apartment. To her daughter. To her mother. She never stayed the night. I asked why. She said it's not appropriate. In Thai culture, we're not married. I have a daughter. I need to set good example. I said I understand. I respect that. Weekend came. Saturday. She brought Ames and her mother to meet me. We went to a park, had a picnic. Ames was shy at first. Quiet. But after a while she warmed up, started asking questions. "What's England like? What's your lorry like? Do you have snow?" I answered everything. She giggled at my accent. Said I sounded funny. Kanya told her that's rude. I said it's fine. I probably do sound funny to her. Her mother was lovely. Older woman. Maybe 65. Didn't speak much English, but she smiled a lot. Kanya translated. Her mother said she's happy Kanya met a good man. That I seem kind. That she hopes we'll be happy together. I said thank you. I hope so too. That night after they left, Kanya and I walked along the river. She said my mother really likes you. Aimed too. I said I like them. Your daughter's a good kid. You've done well with her. She said thank you, it's been hard. Doing it alone, I said you won't be alone anymore. If you'll have me. She stopped walking, looked at me, said what do you mean? I said I mean this. Us. I want this to be real. I want us to be together. She said I want that too. We kissed. First time. Right there by the river. It felt right. Like everything was falling into place. Like I'd finally found something good after 5 years of emptiness. My second week in Bangkok. Tuesday, I was meant to fly home Friday. 4 days left. Kanya came to my hotel after work. She looked upset. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "It's my mother. She's sick." I said, "What happened?" She said she went to doctor today. They found something. In her stomach. They need to do tests, scans, maybe surgery. I said, "That's serious. Is she okay?" She said, "I don't know. I'm scared, Mikey. I don't know what to do." I said, "What do the doctors say?" She said they want to do CT scan, but it costs money. About 500 quid. Her insurance doesn't cover it all. She has to pay up front. I said, "When?" She said, "Tomorrow." Or they can't book her in. She'll have to wait weeks. I said, "That's not on. She needs it done now." She said, "I know. But I don't have that money. Not right now. I get paid next week, but it's too late." I said, "I'll pay for it." She said, "What?" "No. Mikey." "No, I can't ask you that." I said, "You're not asking. I'm offering." She said, "It's too much." I said, "It's 500 quid. That's nothing. Your mother's health is everything. Let me help." She started crying. Said, "You're too kind. I don't deserve this." I said, "You do. You've shown me Bangkok. Introduced me to your family. Let me be there for you. Let me help." I transferred the money that night. To her account. She sent me a photo of the receipt from the hospital. Official. CT scan booked for Wednesday. Her mother's name. The amount. 25,000 baht. It looked proper. Real. Wednesday, she messaged. Said the scan went well. They're waiting for results. Should know by end of week. Thank you so much, Mikey. I don't know what we would have done without you. I said that's what I'm here for. To help. To support you. Thursday, she messaged. Said there's a problem. The scan showed something. They need to do another procedure. Biopsy. To check if it's serious. About 400 quid. But it has to be done soon. I said when? She said Friday. Tomorrow. I said that's when I fly home. She said, I know. I'm sorry. This is bad timing. I said, don't be daft. Your mother's health is more important than anything. I'll pay for it. I transferred another 400 quid. Got the receipt. Same hospital. Biopsy scheduled. Friday morning. My flight was at 6 p.m. Kanya came to see me off. She was emotional. Said thank you for everything. For coming. For helping. For being so kind. I said I'll be back. Soon as I can. She said when? I said give me a couple months. I'll save up. Book more time off. Come back. She said I'll miss you. I said I'll miss you too. We kissed goodbye at my hotel. She had to work. Couldn't come to the airport. I said I understand. She said message me when you land. I said I will. I flew home. Back to Newcastle. Back to the lorry. Back to reality. But it felt different this time. I had something to look forward to. Someone waiting for me. Someone who cared. Someone who made me feel alive again. That weekend she messaged. Said her mother's results came back. Not cancer. But she needs surgery. To remove a growth. About 600 quid. I said when? She said next week. I'm so worried, Mikey. What if something goes wrong? I said it'll be fine. She'll be fine. Let me help with the cost. She said I can't keep taking your money. I said it's not taking, it's me helping someone I care about. Let me do this. I sent 600 quid. Got the receipt. Surgery scheduled. And that's how it started. The medical bills, the emergencies, the constant need. And me, sitting in Newcastle, driving my lorry, sending money to a woman I'd spent 2 weeks with, thinking I was helping, thinking I was being a good man, thinking we were building something real. I should have known then, should have seen it, but I didn't, because I wanted to believe, needed to believe, that after 5 years of loneliness, I'd finally found someone who cared. The surgery went well. Kanya sent me photos, her mother in hospital, looking tired but okay. Recovery would take time. She said, thank you, Mikey. You saved her life. I said, I'm just glad she's all right. She said, I love you. First time she'd said it. I said, I love you too. We talked every day. Video calls when I wasn't on a run. Messages when I was. She'd send me updates. Her mother's recovery. Aimed school. Work stuff. I'd send her photos from my runs. Germany. Belgium. Netherlands. She'd say she missed me. Wanted me to come back. I said, I'm saving up. I'll be back soon. April came. 2 months since I'd been to Bangkok. Kanya messaged. Said there's a problem. Aimed school. They're increasing fees. I said I thought education was free in Thailand. She said government schools are free, but Aimed goes to private school. Better education. English program. It costs money. Termly fees. I said how much? About 900 quid. For the term. I said that's a lot. She said I know, but I want her to have good education. Good future. If she goes to government school, the teaching's not good. She won't learn English properly. Won't get into university. I said, when do you need it? She said next week. Or they'll remove her from the school. I thought about it. 900 quid. That's 2 weeks' wages for me. But it's for Ahmed, for her education, for her future. And Kanya's right. Education matters. I said I'll help. She said, are you sure? I said, I want Aimed to have the best. She cried. Said, you're amazing. I don't deserve you. I said, you do. I sent 900 quid. She sent me a photo. School uniform invoice. Aimed's name. The amount. Looked proper. I said, is she happy about staying at the school? She said, so happy. She wants to say thank you. I said, put her on. Aimed appeared on the video call. Shy smile. Said, thank you, Uncle Mikey, for helping me stay at school. I said, you're welcome, pet. You work hard now. Get good grades. She said, I will, I promise. May, Kanya messaged. Said her motorbike broke down. She needs it for work. To get to the hotel. Taxis are too expensive every day. I said, how much to fix it? She said, mechanic says about 160 quid. But if it's too expensive, maybe I just take bus. I said, don't be daft. You need your bike. I'll send it. She said, you've already helped so much. I said, and I'll keep helping. That's what people do when they care about each other. I sent 160. Got a photo. Motorbike at mechanic. Invoice. Her bike registration. All looked legit. June. I booked another trip. 2 weeks. July, I told Kanya. She was over the moon. Said, I can't wait to see you. It's been too long. I miss you so much. I said, I miss you too. She said, this time maybe you stay longer. I said, I've only got 2 weeks off. She said, maybe next time you stay a month. Or move here. I laughed. Said, move to Bangkok. She said, why not? You could retire here. We could be together properly. I said, I'm 54. Can't retire yet. She said, think about it. I said, I will. Week before my trip, she messaged. Said there's a problem. Her landlord increased the rent. On her apartment, where she lives with Aimed and her mother. I said, by how much? About 100 quid. She said she can't afford it. She's already struggling with bills, with her mother's medication, with Aimed's school. I said, where will you go if you can't pay? She said, I don't know. Maybe move back to her mother's village, outside Bangkok. But then I'd lose my job. Can't commute that far every day. I said, how much do you need? She said, if I can pay 3 months up front, landlord will let me stay. About 300 quid. I said, I'll send it. She said, Mikey, no, you've already sent so much. I said, it's fine. I'm coming next week anyway. I don't want you worrying about rent. I want you to be happy. Secure. She said, I don't know what to say. I said, say you'll still be in Bangkok when I arrive. She said, I will. Thanks to you. I sent 300 quid. Got a photo. Rental contract. Her name. The apartment address. 3 months paid. July, August, September. I landed in Bangkok first week of July. She picked me up from the airport. Same as before. Big hug. Big smile. We went to my hotel. Same one as before. Near her work. She came up to my room. We talked. Kissed. She said, I missed you so much. I said, I missed you too. It's been 5 months. Too long. She said, I know, but you're here now. That's all that matters. We spent the first few days doing tourist stuff. Ayutthaya. Floating market. River cruise. She took time off work to be with me. Said she wanted to spend every moment together. I said, what about work? She said, I told them family emergency. They understand. I said, I don't want you to lose your job because of me. She said, you're more important than work. One night we were at dinner. I said, Kanya, why don't you ever stay the night with me? She said, I told you. It's not appropriate. I have Aimed. I need to be home. I said, but you're an adult. Aimed's 12. Your mother's there. Surely one night wouldn't hurt. She said, Mikey, please. Don't push this. It's cultural. You wouldn't understand. I said, I'm trying to understand. We've been together 8 months. I've sent you money. Helped your family. But we've never spent a full night together. She said, is that all you want? To sleep with me? I said, no. That's not what I mean. I just want to feel like we're actually together. Like we're a couple. She said we are a couple. I said, then act like it. She got upset. Said, I'm doing my best. I have responsibilities. A daughter, a mother, a job. I can't just drop everything. I said, I'm not asking you to drop everything. Just stay one night. She said, I can't. I'm sorry. If that's not enough for you, maybe this won't work. I backed off. Said, no. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to push. You're right. I need to respect your boundaries. She said, thank you. I said, I love you. She said, I love you too. But it bothered me. Proper bothered me. 8 months, thousands of pounds sent. And we'd never spent a full night together. Never woken up next to each other. She'd always leave by 10 p.m, go home. Every single time. I started wondering why. Was she ashamed of me? Was there someone else? Was I just a wallet? I pushed the thoughts away. Told myself I was being paranoid. She had a daughter. A mother. Responsibilities. That's all it was. Second week of my trip, she said there's another problem. Her mother needs more medication. Doctor changed her prescription. This new one's expensive. Not covered by insurance. I said, how much? She said 6,000 baht a month. About 120 for 3 months supply up front. 360 total. I said, why 3 months? She said, cheaper to buy in bulk. I said, all right, I'll send it. She said, thank you. You're so good to us. I sent 360. Got a photo. Pharmacy receipt. Her mother's name. Medication list. All in Thai. Couldn't read it. Just had to trust it was real. I flew home end of July. Back to Newcastle. Back to work. I'd now sent about $4,000 total. Didn't seem like that much spread over 8 months. Surgery, school fees, motorbike, rent, medication, all reasonable things. All emergencies, not her fault, just life. But it didn't stop. August. Aimed needed new school uniform. Old one didn't fit. Growing kid, 60 quid. I sent it. September. Kanya's motorbike broke again. Different problem. 5,000 baht, 100 quid. I sent it. October. Her mother fell. Needed x-rays. Possible fracture. 200 quid. I sent it. November. Aimed school trip. Educational. To Chiang Mai. All her classmates going. She'd be devastated if she missed it. 240. I sent it. December. Kanya's apartment had a leak. Ceiling damage. Landlord wants her to pay for repairs. 160. I sent it. Every month. Something. Always something. Always reasonable. Always urgent. And I kept sending. Because that's what you do when you care about someone. When their family's struggling. When they need help. You help. By January 2026, I'd sent about 7.5 grand. In 1 year. That's more than I'd ever spent on anything except my house and my lorry. But I told myself it was worth it. I had someone who cared, someone who made me feel needed, someone who wasn't Linda's ghost. I booked another trip. February. 1 year since I first visited. Anniversary trip. 2 weeks again. Kanya was excited. Said she had something special planned. I said, what? She said, you'll see. Week before I flew out, she messaged. Said aimed school fees are due again. 900 quid. Can I help? I said, aye, course. I sent it. Then she said there's something else, something big. I said, what? She said, I've been thinking. About us. About our future. I said, me too. She said, I want us to live together. Properly. Not you visiting every few months. I said, I want that too. But how? I live in Newcastle. You live in Bangkok. She said you could move here. Rent is cheaper than England. You could retire early. We could be together every day. I said, I can't retire yet. I'm only 55. I need to work another 10 years at least. She said, what if you didn't have to? What if we had a business? Something we could run together? I said, what kind of business? She said, I've been thinking. Maybe a guest house. Small one. 4 or 5 rooms. For tourists. I could manage it. You could help. We'd make good money. Be our own bosses. I said, that sounds nice, but guest houses aren't cheap. She said, I know. But if we save, if we plan, maybe in a few years. I said, maybe. She said, or sooner if we find the right place. I said, we'll see. I flew out mid-February. Landed in Bangkok. She picked me up. Huge hug. Said, happy anniversary. 1 year since we met in person. I said, I know. Can't believe it's been a year. She said, I have a surprise for you. I said, what? She said, you'll see. Come. We got in a taxi. I thought we were going to my hotel, but we went somewhere else. Residential area. Not far from her apartment, apparently. We pulled up outside a small building. 3 stories, balconies. Nice area. She said, this is it. I said, this is what? She said, the guest house. The one I've been looking at. Come see. We went inside. The owner was there, Thai bloke, maybe 50, spoke decent English. He showed us around. 5 rooms, each with bathroom, small kitchen, reception area downstairs. It was nice. Basic but clean. Good bones. He said he's moving to Chiang Mai. Family reasons. Wants to sell. I said, how much? He said 1.2 million baht. About 24 grand. Kanya said it's perfect, isn't it? We could run this together. Make good money. Be together every day. I said it's nice, but that's a lot of money. She said I have some savings. About £10,000. If you could put in 14, we could buy it. 50-50 partners. I said 14 grand. She said, I know it's a lot. But think about it. Our own business. Our future. No more sending money for emergencies. We'd be making money together. I said I need to think about it. She said, of course. No pressure, just think about it. That night at dinner, I said, Kanya, I've been thinking. About the guest house. She said, and? I said, it's a big commitment. I'd be putting in most of the money. She said, I'm putting in 10,000. That's everything I have. I said, I know. But if it doesn't work out, I'd lose 14 grand. She said, it will work out. We'll make it work. Together. I said, how do I know it's real? She looked hurt. Said, "What do you mean?" I said, "How do I know the guest house is actually for sale? That the owner's legit? That this isn't just another emergency?" She went quiet. Then she said, "I can't believe you just said that." I said, "I'm sorry. I'm just being careful." She said, "You think I'm scamming you? After everything?" I said, "No. I just want to be sure." She said, "If you don't trust me, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we shouldn't be together." I said, "That's not what I mean." She said, "Then what do you mean?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just scared of losing money." She said, "You're scared of losing money, but not scared of losing me." I said, "That's not fair." She said, "None of this is fair. I opened my life to you, my family, my heart, and you think I'm scamming you." She got up, left the restaurant. I paid the bill, went after her. She was outside crying. I said, "Kanya, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that." She said, "Go back to your hotel, Mikey. I need space." I said, "Please, don't do this." She said, "I'll call you tomorrow." Maybe. She walked off, got a taxi, left me standing there. I went back to my hotel, sat on the bed, felt like shite. I'd accused her of scamming me, after a year, after everything. What was wrong with me? But part of me kept thinking, 14 grand, for a guest house I'd never seen the paperwork for, with a woman I'd never spent a full night with, who always had emergencies, always needed money. Was I being smart or was I being paranoid? Next morning she messaged, said, "I'm sorry about last night. I overreacted." I said, "No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have doubted you." She said, "It hurt, but I understand. It's a lot of money. You need to be careful." I said, "I do trust you." "I do." She said, "Then trust me on this. The guest house is real. The owner is real. This is our chance." I said, "Let me see the paperwork, the ownership documents, the sale agreement." She said, "Okay, I'll get them. Give me a few days." I said, "All right." 3 days later, she showed me documents. All in Thai, official stamps, the owner's name, the property address, sale price, 1.2 million baht. I said, "Can you translate?" She said, "It's standard property sale documents, owners selling. We buy, 50-50 ownership. Our name's on the deed." I said, "When?" She said, "Soon as we pay." I said, "I want to bring the documents to a lawyer. Get them checked." She said, "Why? Don't you trust me?" I said, "I do, but this is big money. I need to be sure." She looked hurt again. Said, "Fine. Take them to a lawyer. I'm not hiding anything." I said, "Thank you." She said, "You have 1 week left here. Then you go back to Newcastle. If you want to do this, we need to decide soon. Owner has other buyers interested." I said, "I'll decide by the end of the week." I took the documents to a lawyer. British Expat recommended one. I paid 100 quid for a consultation. Showed him the papers. He looked through them. Said they looked legitimate. Property ownership docs. Sale agreement. All standard. I said, "So it's real?" He said, "The paperwork looks real, but I'd recommend you verify the property exists, check the land office records. Make sure the owner actually owns it. Don't send money till you've done that." I said, "How do I do that?" He said, "Go to the land office. Ask to see the property deed. It's public record. They'll show you." I told Kanya. She said, "Fine. Let's go tomorrow. We'll go together." We went to the land office. She spoke to the clerk in Thai. He pulled up records on the computer. Showed us. The property address. The owner's name. Matched the documents. It was real. The owner really owned it. It was really for sale. I felt relief. Massive relief. It was real. This was real. Kanya wasn't scamming me. I'd been paranoid for nothing. I said, "Let's do it." She said, "Really?" I said, "Aye, let's buy the guest house. Let's build our future." She hugged me. Said, "I love you so much. Thank you for trusting me." I said, "I love you too." I transferred £14,000 that week. To her account. She'd add her 10,000. We'd buy the guest house 50-50. Partners. Our business. Our future. I flew home feeling good. Feeling like I'd finally done something right. Finally invested in something real. Not just sending money for emergencies. Actually building something. But then March came, and everything changed. March, I'm back in Newcastle. Working my runs. Thinking about the guest house. About our future. About moving to Bangkok permanently. Maybe selling my house. Taking early retirement. Starting over at 55. It felt possible. Real. For the first time since Linda died, I had something to look forward to. Kanya messaged every day, said the guest house purchase was moving forward. Paperwork being processed. Should be complete in a few weeks. Then we'd start renovations. Get it ready to open. She was excited, sending me ideas, paint colours, furniture, branding. She wanted to call it Mikey and Kanya Guesthouse. I said that's perfect. Then she said we need money for renovations. Before we can open. New mattresses. Paint. Repairs the owner didn't mention. About £6,000. I said that wasn't in the plan. She said I know. But we can't open without doing the work. Guests won't come if the rooms are tired. I said, how much have you put in from your savings? She said, all of it. The 10,000. It's gone. Into the purchase. Now we need more for renovations. I said, I don't have £6,000 just lying about. She said, I know, but maybe you could ask your bank, a small loan. I said, I'm not taking a loan. She said, then what do we do? We've bought the guest house, but we can't open it. I said, give me time. Let me think. But something felt off. The guest house was supposed to cost £24,000 total. I'd put in 14. She'd put in 10. That's 24. Now she's saying we need another 6 for renovations. That's 30,000 total. Way more than the original plan. I called Daz, told him everything. He said, Mikey, man, this doesn't sound right. I said, what do you mean? He said, you've sent her what, 20-odd grand? I said 21.5, plus the 14 for the guest house. 35.5 total. He went quiet. Then he said 35,000 in 14 months. I said, He said, mate, that's a lot of money. I said, I know, but we're building something. He said, have you seen the guest house since you paid for it? I said, no, she's handling everything. He said, Mikey, go to Bangkok. Unannounced. See it yourself. Make sure it's real. I said, you think she's lying? He said, I think you need to see it with your own eyes before you send another penny. I said, you're right. I booked a flight. Didn't tell Kanya, just booked it. 1 week. April. I'd surprise her. Show up at the guest house, see the progress. See what we were building together. I landed in Bangkok on a Tuesday afternoon. Got a taxi straight to the guest house address. The one from the documents. Residential area. I remembered it from February. The taxi pulled up. I got out. Looked at the building. It was occupied. Lights on, curtains open. People inside, a Thai family. Kids playing on the balcony. It wasn't a guest house. It was someone's home. Someone was living there. I stood there confused. Maybe I had the wrong address. I checked my phone, pulled up the documents Kanya had sent. Same address. This was it. This was the guest house we'd supposedly bought. I walked up to the building, rang the bell. A Thai woman answered. Maybe 40. I said, hello, do you speak English? She said, little bit. I said, I'm looking for a guest house. This address. She looked confused. Said, this my home, I live here. I said, how long have you lived here? She said, 5 years. I said, 5 years. She said, yes. Why? I said, nothing. Sorry. Wrong address. I walked away. Heart pounding. This wasn't right. This wasn't right at all. I called Kanya, she didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. I messaged. I'm in Bangkok. At the guest house address. There's a family living here. What's going on? She didn't reply. I got a taxi to her hotel, the one where she worked. I'd been there before. Knew exactly where it was. I walked into the lobby. Went to the front desk. Different receptionist. Young Thai girl. I said, hello, is Kanya working today? She said, Kanya? I said, yes. Kanya. She works here. Reception. The girl looked confused. Asked another receptionist. Older woman? The older woman came over, said, can I help you? I said, I'm looking for Kanya. She works here. Reception. The older woman said, Kanya doesn't work here anymore. I said, what? She said she quit. Maybe 2 years ago. I said, 2 years? She said, yes. 2023, she left. I said, where did she go? The woman said, I don't know. Why, you friend? I said something like that. She said, sorry. I can't help you. I said, can I speak to the manager? She said, manager very busy. I said, please. It's important. She made a call. 5 minutes later, a Thai man came out. Hotel manager. Maybe 50. He said, can I help you? I said, I'm looking for Kanya. Used to work here. Reception. He said, Kanya quit in 2023. March. I said, why? He said, personal reasons, that's all I can say. I said, do you have her contact information? He said, I cannot give that out. I said, I'm her boyfriend. He looked at me. Said, her boyfriend? I said, yes. We've been together over a year. He said, I don't know about that. But she quit 2 years ago. I said 2 years, but she told me she still worked here. He said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I left the hotel, walked down the street, sat on a bench. My head was spinning. She quit in 2023, 2 years ago. But she'd been telling me she worked there, showing me the lobby, the desk, her uniform. Had she been lying the whole time? I messaged her again. You quit your job 2 years ago. You lied to me. Call me now. She didn't reply. I went to her apartment, the one I'd paid 3 months rent for, the address from the rental documents. I got a taxi there. Walked up to the building, found the apartment number. Knocked. No answer. Knocked again. A neighbour came out. Thai woman. Older. I said, hello, I'm looking for Kanya. She lives here. The woman said, Kanya. I said, yes. Apartment 4B. The woman said, no Kanya here. I said she lives here with her daughter and mother. The woman said, I don't know Kanya. Maybe wrong building. I showed her the rental document, the address. She looked at it. Said this address, but I never see Kanya. Maybe she moved. I said, do you know who lives in 4B? She said, Thai family, husband, wife, baby. I said, how long have they lived there? She said, maybe 1 year. I said, 1 year. She said, yes. Why, you looking for someone? I said, never mind. Thank you. I walked away. None of it was making sense. The guest house had a family living in it. The hotel said she quit 2 years ago. The apartment wasn't hers. Everything was fake. Everything was lies. I sat in a coffee shop, opened Facebook. I'd never looked for her on Facebook before. We only talked online, but I searched for her name. Kanya, Bangkok, hotel receptionist. Found a few profiles, scrolled through. Then I found one. Her photo. Same woman, same face. I clicked on it. Her profile was public. I scrolled through her photos, recent ones. Last week, last month, last year. And there he was, a Thai man, maybe 40, in loads of photos with her, holding hands, kissing, at restaurants, at the beach, at home, with 2 kids, a boy, maybe 8, a girl, maybe 5, not 12. Not aimed, different kids, younger kids, his kids, their kids. One photo, caption in Thai. I used Google Translate. Happy family day with my husband and our babies. Her husband. I kept scrolling. More photos, going back months, years, family photos, beach holidays, birthday parties, Christmas. The kids growing up in the photos. This wasn't new. This was years of photos, years of a life. A husband, 2 kids, a family. I clicked on the man's profile. His name was Wutichai. His profile said, married to Kanya. Since 2015, 10 years. They'd been married 10 years. I sat there staring at my phone. She was married. Had been the whole time. The daughter aimed? Didn't exist. Or maybe she did, but she wasn't 12. Maybe she was the 5-year-old in these photos. The mother who needed surgery. Maybe real. Maybe not. The hotel job. Quit 2 years ago. The apartment. Not hers. The guest house. Someone else's home. Everything was fake. Every single thing. I messaged her again. I found your Facebook. I know about Wutichai. I know about your kids. Call me now or I'm going to the police. 10 minutes later, she called. I answered. Said, what the Kanya? She said, Mikey, I can explain. I said, explain what? That you're married? That you've been lying for over a year? That everything was fake? She said, it's not all fake. I said, what part was real? The part where you took 35 grand from me. She went quiet. I said, the hotel said you quit in 2023. She said, I did quit. I said, so you've been lying about working there? She said, yes. I said, the guest house. There's a family living there. She said, I know. I said, so we didn't buy it? She said, no. I said, where's my £14,000? She said, it's gone. I said, where? She said, I spent it. I said, on what? She said things. My family, life. I said, you stole it. She said, I didn't steal it. You gave it to me. I said, I gave it to you for the guest house. She said, I needed the money. I'm sorry. I said, what about the other 21 grand? The surgery, the school fees, the rent. All of it. She said some of it was real. My mother did have surgery, just not that expensive. The school fees were real, but less than I said. The rent was real, but I pocketed the extra. I said, so you lied about all of it. She said, I needed the money, Mikey. My husband doesn't make much. We have 2 kids. Bills. Life is expensive. I said, so you used me. She said, I liked you. I did. You're a good man, but I needed money more than I needed love. I said, I'm going to the police. She said, go ahead, they won't help you. I said, why not? She said, because you sent money willingly. No contract, no proof I promised anything. It's your word against mine. And you're a Farang who sent money to a Thai woman online. They'll laugh at you. I said, you're a thief. She said, I'm a mother trying to survive. You're a lonely old man who thought he could buy love. We both got what we wanted. You got company, I got money. Now it's over. She hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand. £35,460. Gone. Every penny I'd sent her. For a life that didn't exist. A woman who didn't exist. A future that was never real. I went to the police anyway. Filed a report. Showed them everything. The transfers, the messages, the fake documents. They listened. Took notes. Then said same thing she said. It's a civil matter. Not criminal. I sent money willingly. No contract. No proof of fraud. They couldn't help. Suggested I get a lawyer. I found a lawyer. British expat. Cost me £500 consultation. He looked at everything. Said you could try to sue her. But she doesn't have assets. The money's spent. You'd spend thousands on legal fees. Wait years. Probably get nothing. His advice? Go home. Move on. There's nothing to recover here. So that's what I did. Flew back to Newcastle. Back to my empty house. Back to my lorry. Back to the life I'd been trying to escape. I didn't tell anyone the full story. Just Daz. Everyone else, I said Thailand didn't work out. They didn't ask more. Probably figured it was just a holiday romance that ended. I couldn't tell them I'd sent 35 grand to a married woman with 2 kids who'd been lying about everything for over a year. That I'd been video calling her while her husband and kids were probably in the next room. That every emergency was either fake or exaggerated. That the guest house was never ours. That aimed probably didn't exist. That I'd been played from day one. I went back to work. Long hauls, Europe runs, kept myself busy, kept myself from thinking. But at night lying in bed I'd think about it. About how stupid I'd been. How desperate. How lonely. Linda had been gone 5 years. And I still hadn't moved on. I just tried to replace her. Tried to fill the gap with someone who didn't even exist. And I'd paid 35 grand for the privilege. I checked my savings. I'd had about 60 grand before I met Kanya. After sending her money, I had 24 grand left. At 55. That was supposed to be my retirement fund. My safety net. Now it was half gone. I thought about Linda. About how she'd have been disappointed. Not angry, just disappointed. She'd have said, Mikey, what were you thinking? And I wouldn't have had an answer. Because I wasn't thinking. I was feeling. Feeling lonely. Feeling worthless. Feeling like I needed someone to want me. And Kanya saw that. Saw exactly what I needed. And she gave it to me. For a price. I deleted everything. Photos, messages, line chats, Facebook. All of it. Blocked her everywhere. Tried to forget. But you don't forget losing 35 grand. You don't forget realising you've been played for over a year. You don't forget that every conversation, every I love you, every plan for the future was just a transaction. Daz came round one night. Brought beers, we sat in my kitchen. He said, you doing all right? I said, I'm fine. He said, you don't look fine. I said, I'm just tired. He said, it's been 2 months. You need to start living again. I said, this is living. Work, home, repeat. He said, that's not living, that's existing. I said, what's the difference? He said, living is when you've got something to look forward to. I said, I've got nothing to look forward to. I'm 55. I've got 24 grand left. I work a job that destroys my back. I come home to an empty house. Linda's gone. Kanya was fake. I've got nothing. He said, you've got your kids. I said, they've got their own lives. They don't need their old man. He said, they do. Call them. See them. Stop hiding. He was right. But I couldn't. Couldn't face telling them what happened. Couldn't face the questions, the judgment, the disappointment. So I stayed hidden, stayed working, stayed alone. I'm Mikey, 55 years old, HGV driver from Newcastle. My wife Linda died 5 years ago, and I still haven't recovered. Met a woman online, Thai woman named Kanya. Talked to her for 6 months before meeting. Thought I'd found something real. Visited her 3 times over 14 months. Sent her £35,460 for her mother's surgery, her daughter's school fees, apartment rent, motorbike repairs, and finally a guest house we were going to buy together. Run together. Build a future together. But she was married the whole time. Had 2 kids. Quit her hotel job 2 years before we met. The guest house was never for sale. The daughter Aim didn't exist, or wasn't who she said she was. Everything was lies. Everything was fake. And I fell for all of it. Because I was lonely. Because I was desperate. Because I wanted to believe someone could want me after Linda. I'm back in Newcastle now. Working, living in my house. Got 24 grand left of my retirement savings. And I've learned that 6 months of messages doesn't mean you know someone. That video calls can hide a husband and kids in the next room. That emergencies are never ending when you're funding someone else's life. And that being lonely makes you stupid. I haven't been back to Thailand. Won't ever go back. Can't face it. Can't face knowing she's there. With her husband. Her kids. Living the life that I paid for. Using my money for their bills. Their food. Their life. While I'm here alone. 35 grand poorer. No wiser. Just more broken. And that was Mikey's story. Wife died. Spent 6 months building an online relationship. Sent 35k over 14 months. She was married with 2 kids the whole time. Working his lorry runs now with 24k left at 55. Ever fallen for someone online only to find out nothing was real? Share below.